Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you all are doing well. I, JHS bearing the USN 1VE21CS064, I'm here to talk about the subject Biology for Engineers, which bears the subject code 21BE45. So let's get right into the topic. The topic I am going to be talking today is going to be the brain as a CPU system. So the agenda is as follows. First is going to be the introduction, then followed by the similarities between the brain and the CPU, the differences between the brain and the CPU, the brain's processing power, the memory storage in the brain, and finally the conclusion. So, moving on in the first topic, we have the introduction. So, today we are going to be talking about one of the most fascinating things in the world, that is the human brain as a whole, but not just any aspect of it. We'll be discussing how it functions like a CPU system. Our brain are the most complex structures in the universe. They are responsible for everything from our thoughts and emotions to our movement and senses. By understanding how the brain works like a CPU, we can gain an insight on how we learn, make decisions, and even how we perceive reality. So, buckle up, people, and get ready to dive into the amazing world of the human brain. First, we are going to be dealing with the similarities between the brain and the CPU. So, when we think about the brain and the CPU, we might not see many similarities at first glance. However, upon closer inspection, we can see that both the brain and the CPU are incredibly powerful machines that are capable of processing vast amounts of information. One of the main similarity between the brain and the CPU is the processing power itself. Both the brain and the CPU are able to process information at lightning fast speeds, allowing us to perform complex tasks and make decisions quickly. Additionally, both the brain as well as the CPU have memory storage capabilities, which is going to allow us to store and access information as and when needed. Moving on to the next slide. In both cases, it is activated by electrical impulses, but the brain is going to produce weaker electrical signals through chemicals that establish the communication between neurons, while the computer is going to generate the electrical signals of higher power. A CPU executes programmed instructions to add, compare, and also to move the data. It deals directly with the information, and the other parts of the computer serve to store data or bring it into or rather out of the CPU. But the CPU works actively on the data. The human brain, like the CPU, uses the data that is gathered by the senses to help the body survive, and it also helps in the purpose to manage information, and it uses the rest of the body to gather information, act on it. So the brain comes with hardwired programming for actions such as the breathing, sneezing, and regulating our hearts. Beyond those functions, you have an enormous capacity of gained new abilities by learning. By loading different programs into memory, the CPU can also perform a wide range of different tasks. Moving on to the next slide, we have the differences between the brain and the CPU. While a CPU can process information at lightning fast speeds, it lacks the brain's ability to learn and adapt the brain in constantly rewiring itself based on experiences and newer information, allowing us to grow and change over time. So, this plasticity is what sets the brain apart from any man made machine. Another key difference between the brain and the CPU is their approach to problem solving. While a CPU relies on a pre programmed algorithm to solve problems, the brain is capable of creative thinking and finding novel solutions to complex issues. This flexibility itself is going to allow us to tackle the challenges in new and innovative ways. Moving on with the next slide. The most significant difference between the brain and a computer is that the human brain has the ability to make decisions on its own, and it can store an infinite amount of information. In contrast, a computer has to be programmed to perform the functions and has a limited capacity to store the data and information which and whenever being provided. Next comes the construction. The brain is going to make use of something called as neurons and synapses, which helps in transforming or rather transmitting the information from one portion to another portion, which is further going to include the CNS as well as the PNS. But the CPU itself makes use of the ICs, transistors, diodes, capacitors, and transmitters. Coming to the memory of the brain, the memory increases each time by connecting synaptic links between one synapse to another synapse, whereas the CPU's memory increases by adding more memory chips. Moving on with the next point, that's the backup system. So the brain has a built-in backup system, whereas the CPU should have a backup system that is constructed manually, which is going to depend upon how much storage is going to be used for the given particular type of backup data. Moving on with the next slide, we have the brain's processing power. So the human brain is an incredible machine capable of processing vast amounts of information at lightning fast speeds. But how does it actually work? At the most basic level, the brain is made up of billions of neurons, each one of which are going to be connected to thousands of others via the synapses. Whereas a neuron fires, it sends a signal down its axon to other neurons, creating a chain reaction that allows us to think and feel and rather even move to such feelings which we get. But how does this compare to a CPU is the question. Where computers are certainly faster than humans when it comes to processing raw data, they are not nearly as adaptable or efficient. So, the brain is able to learn and even adapt in ways that computers simply cannot, thanks to its ability to form newer connections between neurons and reorganizable itself based on experience. So this makes it an incredibly powerful tool for problem solving and creativity as a whole. So moving on to the next slide, we have the memory storage in the brain. So memories are stored in a region of the brain which are called as the hippocampus as shown in the red computer illustration. So the human brain is a complex organ that has the ability to store very vast amount of information. Unlike a computer's hard drive, the brain stores the memory in a distributed fashion, meaning that different parts of the brain are responsible for storing different aspects of the memory. Moving on to the next slide. For example, if you remember a specific event from your childhood, the visual details might be stored in one part of the brain, while the emotional aspect of the memory are stored in another part of the brain. When you recall the memory, your brain pieces together all of the different components to recreate the entire memory. This distributed storage system allows the brain to store an incredible amount of information without running out of space. In fact, scientists estimate that the human brain can store up to 2.5 petabytes of information, which is equivalent to about 3 million hours of television shows. So that's actually a very big number. While a computer's hard drive can store a lot of information as well, it does so in a linear fashion. This means that when you retrieve a piece of information from a computer's hard drive, it is accessed in a sequential order, similar to that of a sequential search algorithm. In contrast, the brain can access multiple pieces of information simultaneously, allowing us to quickly recall memories and make the connection between the different pieces of information. And this works similar to that of a quick sort algorithm. Moving on to the next slide. Here is going to be the conclusion. So, in conclusion, we can see that there are many similarities between the brain and CPU, such as their processing power and memory storage capabilities. However, there are also important differences, such as the brain's ability to learn and adapt to different things based on the environment and based on what a particular human being is going to be doing. By understanding the brain as a CPU system, we can unlock new insights into how our brain and how our mind works and potentially develop newer technologies that are going to mimic the brain's incredible abilities. It is very crucial that we continue to explore this fascinating topic and push the boundaries of what we know about the brain and its potential and how it can also be used in other fields of engineering and in particular the computer science and engineering branch. I hope you understood a lot about what the brain is, the similarities of the brain and the CPU, the dissimilarities between the brain and the CPU, the memory process management of the brain, and the other topics which are followed in this video. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.